Yay, we are live.
Figured it out.
So excited. We had a little bit of a blip there. I kind of double checked. We have about a minute before 7:30, so I'm going to have a couple people pop in, make sure everything is going well. Up there, looks like we are live. Yay.
Hey.
Awesome. So it's 7:30, and thank you, Melissa, for jumping on. This is the first of many Live Well Wednesdays, and I kind of named it Live Well Wednesdays because I thought, oh, Facebook Live, live, you know, it kind of makes sense. I want to do things to promote people to be better people, just live better lives. And in today's society, we all know things are kind of crazy. So hopefully this will bring more people together to talk, have open conversations, and just, you know, let's all be friends here and learn from each other. Obviously, today is Veterans Day. And ironically, Melissa and I met through one of our good friends, Brian Huchek, who is a veteran. So yes, all those veterans out there, happy Veterans Day.
Happy Veterans Day.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. For those of you who don't know, I was an Air Force spouse for 18 years. And then I jumped over and worked for the Army. Then I worked for military recruiting. So lots of friends in the military, and I have a special place in my heart. My kids are military brats, and I've been all over the place. So once again, happy Veterans Day, everyone. Melissa, I know you have a lot of veterans friends as well. I see that on your Facebook.
Yes, my dad, he was in Air Corps, Army Air Corps, Air Force, and then he was in Air Force National Guard for 20 years. So.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, yeah. Awesome. So you were the brat.
Yeah, I was sort of the tail end of the brat. My brothers and sister were more the brats when I came. He was into the National Guard by the time I came along. So.
Yeah, I think my dad was in the military, but so many years ago that I don't even know if the story's true. My dad kind of embellished a lot of things, but those of you who know me very well about my dad, you'll kind of get a laugh out of that one. So Wednesday evening, once again, the Live Well Wednesday, the whole premise of this is candid conversations. I don't want it to be scripted. I don't want it to have crazy bells and whistles and all these things setting it up and, you know, people not feeling comfortable. Melissa and I have been friends for, I think, forever, but not really. But it seems like
6 years, I think. Well,
yeah.
7 years.
7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have conversations all the time, and I just thought, wow, this is the number one person I want to have first on my first one. So thank you so much. I'm very comfortable talking to you, and I know you'll give me open dialogue and just
my best.
Yeah, topics for everyone to kind of talk about. For those of you who are going to be watching this maybe afterwards or through Melissa's tags and open to the public, a little bit about myself. Where do I start? So honest and open, I'm 45 years old. I've been in the advertising and marketing scene for about 17 years. And I've just come around to realizing, you know what? I really like doing this. I like talking to people, and I've had some health scares recently that some of you may have seen. And I'm just like, hey, this might be what I've been meant to do, and I'm super excited to do it. I have 2 amazing children who are grown. My son Tristan lives in Arizona, and my daughter Jasmine lives in Baltimore, so she's right down the street from me.
I know she lives in Baltimore now.
Yeah.
Very cool.
She is back, so I get to see her more frequently. If we were not in COVID, we could have had some meetings and seen each other a little bit more. But basically, I am a Leo. I'm an empath, and I've always had this need to help people. And so I'm going to use this time through my Facebook Lives to do that. So I'm super excited and looking forward to doing that. And with Melissa here, my first time. Before we jump into our topic, Melissa, if you would like tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're at.
Oh, gee. Do I have to give my age too?
Open it on
57.
whatever you like.
I'm 57. I've been in Baltimore now since 2003. Well, Maryland anyway, not necessarily Baltimore, but Maryland. Before I grew up in Utah, then I lived in Michigan and Toronto. And like I said, my father was in the Air Force, but that was kind of before my time. So I'm a tech writer. I've been doing that for 17 years. And there are good and bad days. But yeah. But and I'm a cusp of Cancer and Leo, and I'm an empath too, so that's another thing we have in common. So I think it's why we have like ridiculous conversations at times. But, yeah.
And he's a Green Bay Packers fan.
I'm single, just me and a couple of dogs, and doing the dating thing once in a while, but that's not real easy with COVID, so nothing's real easy with COVID. But that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, well, Melissa's a huge Green Bay Packers fan, and that's how we met. We started going, we started going to a whole bunch of outings with all of our friends, and I just kept it going and kept meeting new people, and it was great. It was like one of my highlights of one of the events, bringing people together. And that
I met you the first time when I was on a second or third date with somebody I didn't really like, and he was and it was to watch a Packers game, and he was bashing Aaron Rodgers. So I was like, I just pretended I got sick and I left.
Yeah,
I knew that you guys were just down the street, so I left and I came to see you guys. That's where I met you, and it was Ralphie and Brian and the Krav Maga gang. It's kind of how I met you, through the Krav Maga gang. So
and besides all of you trying to get me to go to one of those, I never did.
You never did. You should have. I miss them. I can't do them because of my hand, but I miss it. Yeah, I'd still be doing it. So now I do ballroom dancing, which is like ridiculously, completely the opposite of it, but it's as much fun. So.
But what a great thing. Like, I noticed you guys had such great camaraderie and strength, you know, males, females, it doesn't matter. You guys like really bonded, and it was cool to watch some of the classes that you guys.
Your gender didn't really matter. You were doing the same thing and working just as hard and doing exactly the same stuff, and made some great friends. So. For sure. Awesome. So, well, thanks for the little intro, and now that everybody knows a little bit about who we are, and as these come on, you'll learn more about me. I'm sure I'll have Melissa back on, you know, depending on what we're talking about in the topics. But the thing we wanted to talk about tonight, and is very raw, relevant, and personal to both of us, is grief. You know, when you hear about grief, you always hear about those 5 stages of grief. You know, off the top of my head, it's like denial, anger. Was it acceptance is the last one? Depression, or so. Like, I can't remember them. I was thinking about that earlier, and I was like, but they sort of trick you into thinking that those steps are in order, but they're not. They're all over the place, and they're different for every person you lose. You know.
Absolutely. I think the other one was bargaining. I think you're like, oh, can you?
Yeah, bargaining. Yeah.
And I did pull up a little research too. And at first when I started looking, I'm like, should I go down this rabbit hole? Because I saw, bargaining. Thanks, Mindy. Thank you so much. I started reading. It was like, there's 5, there's 7, there's 12. And I said, okay, no, that's too much. I can't go down that rabbit hole. No.
Oops, froze. There they are.
That's one thing you hear about grief, is those steps. One thing I did, and it actually, ironically, I'm sure somebody was listening to me, but I did get a meme about grief apparently weakens your lungs. And I hadn't heard that before. I had heard, you know, stress is with your heart and your brain and different things. But grief, if you hold on to it for so long, it really is supposed to hurt, you know, your lungs. And that was something I had never heard of before. So just a couple things. What I wanted to do here is I brought Melissa on because Melissa has been through a lot, needless to say. I mean, I can't even fathom how much you have been through. And I think the way you have come out of things, and even through everything, have had such a positive attitude and just really lift other people up. Even myself, you know, I had one major loss. You've had numerous losses. And I just think for you to share your story with people, however much you want to share, is extremely, you know, I'm proud of you for doing it. I think it's very courageous, and I know it will help other people. So Melissa's going to kind of tell everyone about her story. If you want to ask questions while she's speaking, go ahead and type them up, and I'll hold off until she's done. And obviously, once we're done this and it gets posted, if you have any other questions for Melissa, if she doesn't see them, I'll make sure she gets them, and we will get back to you. So Melissa, dear, please, you know, as you'd love to share with us, you know, we've got some time, and I would love you to share your story.
Okay, well, let's see, where do I begin? I guess I'll start with my dad, because he was sort of the first, well, it wasn't the first, but he was the first major loss I had, and that was 2009. And then shortly he had heart attacks for like 20 years. So, yeah, well, let's see. It was pretty close to 20 years from the first heart attack to when we lost him. I learned the most important thing during that time, and I'm very blessed that he'd had all those heart attacks, because I was always, I mean, we were supposed to lose him the first heart attack he had. His heart got down to like 20%. So they told us, you know, I'll never forget that. They told my mom and I, you know, go in and say goodbye to him. So we did the whole dramatic, well, bye, you know, and then we sat and cried all night long in the ICU. We go in there the next morning, son of a bitch, he's just sitting in this rocking chair. It's like, wait a minute, you're supposed to be dead. But he just like, no, you know, not my time. And I learned about a spiritual thing from that, because the reason he said it wasn't his time, the only person my daddy was ever afraid of was his grandma. And he said during the heart attack, when he was like out, she came and told him it's not his time and he better stay. So he always, just after that, he knew. And I often think that the heart attack that took him, she must have came and said, okay, it's finally your time, because he said she came 3 different times to him. So yeah, so that was the first one. He died 2009. And then shortly after that, one of my very best friends, Gretchen, died like 2 months later. And then I had a bit of a reprieve, although I had a breakup and all this horrible stuff. And then 2014, one of my very good friends killed himself. And then 2015, my little niece killed herself. Both of my brothers were killed in 2016 in a car accident. And then my sister, she had been an alcoholic, but she'd been on the wagon pretty much. And then after they died, she fell off and just spiraled down. And then we lost her like a year ago. So
yeah, like a year ago as of yesterday, right? I think.
Actually, yeah, a year ago, September.
Oh, in September. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, September 24th. Because my niece's birthday was September 26th, and she kept saying, I don't want to die on her birthday. And she died like 2 days before. So, yeah. So it's been a rough haul. But I will say one of the things that I'm forever grateful to you for is when my brothers were killed and you started the GoFundMe. Because I didn't know. I couldn't think. But I you know, we had a lot of court case because they were killed by a girl who was texting. So we had all these, you know, legal stuff, and I had to keep going back and forth to Michigan where it happened, where my mom was at the time. I don't know how I would have done it. I couldn't even think about the financial aspect of it. All I knew was I had to figure out some way to get a ticket and get to my mom, and I'll figure all that later. And then you started a GoFundMe, and then this money just kept coming in, paid for everything I needed. So I've always been I always say, you're my angel. You're not just called Angel, you're my angel. So, yeah.
I was like, I don't know, I had never done a GoFundMe ever. And just something said, you know what, this is, I need to do this. And I was so happy to be able to do that for you. And then when you told me like that it literally was just enough.
Yeah. It was $600, and exactly it covered the whole year's worth of. It covered me going there. I went there 3 times, and then it covered my aunt coming back and forth because, yeah. So it was. I mean, and my brother-in-law and sister, they went back and forth. So it covered everybody's travel expenses. It was amazing. Exactly what I needed. So yeah.
Yeah,
but and it was really inspiring because you're going through all this grief, and then you get these emails, and it's like so and so donated $60, so and so donated $200, and you're just sitting there going, wow, people care. And it's an awesome thing too, because if you do know somebody that passes away, don't do flowers, don't do that. Do the money, because they're not going to tell you that they need that money, but they do. But they're not going to say, yeah, I could use $200. You know, they're not going to say that, but that's what you really need. So.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I've come across people that have just, the pride gets in the way.
Yeah, exactly.
100%. And I'm like, I'm the same way. I don't want to send flowers. I don't want to send all of that stuff. It just,
you know what? This sounds so funny, but flowers die. And when the flowers die, it's like a reminder. Yeah. So
I also like when, you know, donating to a cause that they believed in, like that, feel better doing something than just sending flowers and whatnot. One thing that you said that I also agree with is each time it's different. You're going to grieve differently. And I don't think it ever gets easier, or I just,
it colors everything, like the election. I remember, you know, I loved Joe Biden from the beginning, and everybody else was voting for, I'm like, no. And then they'd say, why? And honestly, it was because when I was just after I had lost my brothers, and I can't remember how long it was after that because everything was in a blur. But I remember I cried the night they died. I like, you know, and then after that, I just stopped crying because I had way too much shit to do. I had to take care of my mom. I had to go back and forth. I had to call my mother every day and make sure she was okay. I had to get lawyers. I had to get her a car. I just didn't have time for, you know, that other stuff. And then I sat down and read his book on his son called Promise Me, Dad. And I read the whole book in like one day, and I couldn't stop crying. And it was just like his compassion. And I learned from reading that you are a completely different person after you lose people. You're just completely different. You can either be bitter and horrible, or you can be like my sister and be self-destructive, or you can be compassionate, you know. So
yeah, I saw you posted that book. I remember hearing about it, but even though I haven't read it, I think I want to.
Yeah, you should. It's a quick one, and it's a quick read. Like I said, I read it in a day. I couldn't put it down. And you know, I knew about him from my aunt because she was living in Wilmington at the time the accident took place, a block and a half from her house. So she saw all, and she had worked on his campaign, and she saw all of that stuff. She saw the ambulances and the whole 9 yards. So I knew about him. And then she also told me a story about running into him, and because she was working at a bank, and he, you know, he was back and forth all the time. And not long after that, and she had said to him, you know, I'm really sorry about your kids. I understand because I lost my son, and he just wanted to hear about that. You know, he just that kind of compassion, and it sounds weird, but it inspired me to be like him with my grief, you know. And people say, how have you handled it so well? And he's the reason I've handled it, because he's my role model. I was watching a thing in Meghan McCain the other day, and she said, you know, you're the grief whisperer, she said to him. And I'm like, so that's what he is to me. And I know it's like, I know that might not be a really not, you know, reason to vote for somebody for president, but I also think that what we need in this world right now is compassion. So, you know, if we have a leader that shows us how to be compassionate, then that's a good thing. But I'm only saying that because grief does color you afterwards. It colors every decision you make. I mean, you know, we lost Kenya, you know. So, and it's important to remember too that you're not going to grieve two people the same, and that's hard for me. Especially with my sister, because she was an alcoholic, and she was a mean alcoholic. I mean, you remember what I went through with her. Because I was complaining and crying over it for, you know, a long time. So, and I expected when she died that I would grieve her the same way I grieved my brothers, and I didn't. And it was very confusing and very hard. So that's the most important thing I would say is don't expect grief to ever be the same. You know, every single person, even both of my brothers, I grieved them differently. I lost them at the same time.
Have you noticed, and, you know, I'm going to talk about Kenya here in a few minutes. I don't want to go on too long, but I still think it's important that we get this out, and this is great. Have you realized that you get hit with grief? Does the grief of people dying get easier, or do you not get it as frequently for people that it's been years that have passed, because Kenya is so raw for me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I still grieve my grandpa. He died in 1984. You know, so yeah, it's just, and you never know what's going to bring it up. It's a word or a song. But another thing that I don't want to keep going back to Biden, but another thing that he said, and I'm sure you've heard him say it, is that you know you're going to be okay. It's hard for me to put it. I don't want to ruin what he said, but basically, you know you're going to be okay when you can think about the person you lost and you smile before you cry. I think he puts it, a smile comes to your lips before a tear comes to your eye. And that's when you know, but you're always going to have those tears are always going to come. But now you can smile before you get the tear. You know, I'm barely getting there with my sister. And it's been over a year. It took me, with my brother Rod, it was easy. He was just straight up love, you know. So losing him was hard and bittersweet, but the smile came real quick because I knew he had a rough life. But he was all heart, and I knew that he was okay. You know, I don't know how I knew that at the time. I just knew he was okay. My brother Randy was autistic, and he was my heart and soul. You know, he taught whatever I am as a person. It's because I was, you know, I grew up with him. So that was harder. That one I cried a lot more over. And my sister, I had more anger. But my brother Rod, I had this peace that I can't even, because if this take a moment, it sounds silly, but my brother Randy was killed instantly. They were in a car wreck. A girl was texting. She hit him head on and killed them both. And she was in a hospital for a while, but she, you know, came out of it okay. But Randy died instantly. They figure he had a heart attack, you know, because he'd had a heart attack a few months before. So they figure he just had another heart attack at the right. And that's probably what killed him. But Rod lived for 2 hours, and they, you know, tried to save him, and he lived for 2 hours. And but it's odd because both my aunt and I said the same thing when we were driving back. You know, we met the next day in Green Bay, and then we drove to my mom's. And we both said, you know, Rod was hanging on to see whether he had to be with Randy or not. And I believe that he was hanging on and trying to decide whether he had to go with Randy or whether he needed to try to stay with Mom. And I think he knew I was going to take care of Mom.
Right.
So he went with Randy because Rodney was the oldest. Randy, like I said, was autistic, and they were inseparable, you know, from the time we were little kids. So they lived together their whole life. You know, my brother lived with his boyfriend for a while, and then he came back and lived with Randy and my mom, especially after my dad died, and they were inseparable. And so I just know he just knew he had to be with them. So I had this peace, you know, that he went to be with Randy.
That's very interesting. I like that story. Before we had started, one of our watchers, Lori, who's a colleague of mine, had mentioned something about her daughter, and you know, I guess I may kill this. Her grandfather had passed away, and her daughter had never met the grandfather, but yet she still sees him or feels him. I know you kind of wanted to share a little bit of that.
I had that with my grandpa too. He died when my mom was little, but without getting too much into it, I had a miscarriage once when nobody was with me. You know, my ex was out hunting and I couldn't get to him. And so, and I was laying in bed crying, and all of a sudden I looked over, and my dog at the time was looking at something. So I followed to see what he was looking, and it was my grandpa. And I thought I was dreaming at the time, but then he kept calling me Liebchen, and I was like, I didn't know what that meant. It was German, which is sweetheart for German, but I didn't know that.
Wow.
And I was telling my mom that, and she's like, oh my God. And I'm like, what? She's like, that's what he called me when I was a kid, you know? And so I had that connection with him. And then I've had connections with my, you know, I've gone to John Edward and gotten readings from all my siblings and my grandparents and stuff. And then my niece was here with her kids right after. And my little niece, Stella, she was probably 3 at the time, 4 maybe. I don't even think she was right around that age. And very matter-of-factly, she never met my brother. She never met him because she was just little. And so she was looking at the pictures, but she recognized the picture of, it's a family picture. She recognized me and my sister. And then she's like, oh, there's Uncle Randy. He's so damn funny. And we're like, excuse us? You never met him. She's like, oh, huh. And then she just walked off, you know. She's like, yeah, but he's so damn funny, she says. And I was like, okay. So I think there is a connection with people when you lose them. That doesn't die. I really believe that. So
Yeah.
in fact, the first time I saw John Edward,
Mm-hmm.
my friend said she'd seen him. She's like, ask your brothers a question that only they would know. And so there was like a personal joke that I had with my brother. And I'm sitting in I've seen him at John Edwards 3 times. I highly recommend him if you get a chance. And now you can see him on Zoom, which is really awesome. But there were like 500 people in the place. And so what he would do is he'd sitting in sections, and he'll get a reading in a section, and then he has to kind of hone in on it. So I'm like, I don't want it. He's like, is anybody here lost brothers? And I'm like, there's a million people.
Right.
And then it kept getting closer. Then it was like, lost both your brothers. Lost. And then he's like, one, and they died within 2 hours of each other. And I'm like, holy crap, that's me. So I got up, and we were going back and forth. And he said, is there some kind of joke about Colorado? And I'm like, yes. And he said, your brother said to tell you that wasn't a joke. And if you were smart, you would know that Ohio was funnier. Well, the joke was he would make up jokes about every state, but he didn't think that there was a joke that he had said about, there was a bunch of donkeys in a field when we were going in Colorado. And there were like 120 donkeys or something. And he made some joke, and we were talking about somebody that was a jackass that we knew. Mm-hmm. And so he had said something about, oh, is Colorado like the jackass capital of the world? And so that was like the butt of the joke. And so only the people in my motorhome would have known that. Yeah. And John Edwards knew it. So yeah. So yeah. And there's a million other different stories. But yeah, they don't leave us. My rocking chair, that my brother was autistic, so he rocked his whole life. My rocking chair rocks by itself all the time. So yeah, they don't leave us.
And Lori said thank you so much, because earlier, I don't know if you saw that, but she got chills when you were telling your story. So she definitely appreciated it. I kind of want to just kind of quickly, now I don't want to get emotional, because oh my gosh, I'm emotional and I can already feel it coming on. But a lot of you know, or my best friend Kenya had passed away earlier.
February already.
February, yep. And she had been sick for a very long time, since we were young in high school. She was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma at the age of 18. And back then, in the early 90s, mean kids, she lost a lot of friends. And I was her best friend forever. She was with me when I got married, when I ran off to the courthouse and nobody knew. She was she stood up for me. When kids were born, I moved overseas, always back to her. I had the opportunity of, when I got divorced and came back to Baltimore, that she took me in, and I was able to live with her and her family until I got myself settled. And we brought that 17, 18 years of friendship back full force. It was stronger than ever. I mean, we were inseparable for a good couple of years. Melissa, we brought her into the fold as a football Steelers fan. One thing I wanted to kind of share here and show you guys that I hold near and dear to my heart is kind of funny, and I bring it out, and it's you're gonna laugh, because look, this crusty notebook
has
been with me since 1991, where we used to write letters when people didn't have cell phones to each other. And
in the same notebook?
In the same notebook, we would go back and forth to class, and it's been through moves and water damage and everything. But when she passed away, I literally laid in my bed and read every single page.
Aww.
And I tell you, we are in this digital age, and it's great, but handwritten notes.
I know.
And cards. My mom, bless her heart, sends me a card for everything to this day. She'll send me a birthday card, a Christmas card, and I keep every single one. My kids are gonna, when she
Addie, she still sends cards. I love it. Yeah, I love it.
I find that now, looking back, I'm so happy I have this book to read whenever I get it. And one other thing I want to share too, that I love more than anything, is she made this book for me. There's
Roland, how cool.
It's Roland and me, and then just like her and I, and different football events, and just it's a great picture thing. And at the end, my favorite photo of us, I'll share, is that best friends in our Superman thing. And, you know, going back to take photos, like real photos, print them out, hold on to them. It's even in a book. I like Facebook is actually doing this now. I don't know if you saw that. You can do a Facebook book.
Yeah, my sister did that. So yeah.
Like what a great memory. But just two things that I hold in my heart. For grief with Kenya, I've been lucky. My father passed away when I was younger. I didn't have a good relationship with my father, so I was sad. But
you know, when your parents die, there's a naturalness to it too. I mean, you're sad and it's heartbreaking, but it's still it doesn't go against the laws of nature.
It wasn't too. It was just kind of weird when my father passed away. Great grandparents had passed away. I was sad, but Kenya passing away at, you know, 44 years old.
Yeah, so young and beautiful. Yeah.
Devastating. And I think one thing I would like to share is that I was going through some medical problems previously. I had a bad panic attack. I hadn't driven for 6 months, and my life had been turned upside down for a while before that. So I hadn't seen Kenya for a while. We had a little bit of a falling out, as friends do. It's life, it's up and down. But I had actually spoken to her and texted her, I think 2 months prior, and we had, you know, hey, we need to get together. I can't wait to see you. I miss you. And I told her, I'm like, you're strong now as you were in high school. And she's like, yep, everything's going to be fine. And unfortunately, you know, it wasn't. But I had learned afterwards that because of her health and everything failing, that it was better that this had happened to her. But the thing that I had struggled with.
She was tired.
Yeah. I mean, she held a lot of being sick to herself. A lot of people didn't even know she was sick.
Yeah.
She would cough. Her heart was weak. She was able to have Antonio, her son, which the doctors told her not to have children, but she did. And, you know, she did a lot in her life, but still, I mean, way too young. It made me rethink a lot of things. But the thing that really got to me was with the grief, and because everyone grieves differently, is I had a very, very difficult time going to the funeral and to the viewing.
Yeah.
It was very, very hard. And what upset me most is that people were in my ears about it so much, where, Melissa, I think you and I spoke about it, and you flat out said, do what you need to do for you.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you're not feeling well, if you know this is going to be too stressful, it doesn't matter. Kenya knows how you felt. Kenya knows your relationship. Who cares what everybody else thinks?
Who cares what everybody else thinks? Exactly.
And I did go to the viewing, which I'm glad, because there were a lot of my friends there from high school and a lot of people who we all needed each other.
Yeah.
And I think that was important that I was there. And I was so proud of myself to be able to get myself together through all of this, drive an hour and a half, and then be able to, you know, drive an hour and a half back.
Yeah.
And still be okay. But I think that's something that I want to kind of tell people, hey, don't let your family, your friends, anybody talk you in how to
feel, what to do,
and how to grieve. Yeah. You have to grieve on your own time. I still sit in bed and just bawl thinking about her.
Yeah. Did I tell you this story about finding her grave, trying to find her grave? And this is so Kenya. You know she had something to do with this. This is so her. So I'm walking around the graveyard. It was like sometime last summer, and I had the afternoon off, and I'm going to go see if I can find it. Well, I didn't realize the graveyard was as big as it is. So I'm like walking around, and they're putting cables in the ground for some reason. I don't know why you'd put cables at a graveyard, but so I'm walking along, and I'm not paying attention. I'm looking and trying to find her grave thing, and somehow my foot slipped into this thing with cables, and it felt like somebody reached out and grabbed my foot. I started screaming and jumping around. And then I looked down and saw the cable, and I swear to God, I could hear Kenya laughing. I could just feel her laughter everywhere around me. And I was like, that's very funny, Kenya. I even said that out loud. I was like,
and then to bring that up, a year prior in that cemetery, my children's grandmother was buried in the mausoleum.
Oh, wow.
Kenya's gravesite is literally right in front.
That's what I found out later.
Yeah.
I mean, I've walked past it 20 times.
I think also, and I told you this too, I have yet to go.
Yeah.
I have yet to go to the gravesite. And I need to, but I'm just not there yet.
No, when you get there, let me know and I'll go with you. It's not too far.
Yeah, I know it's going to be.
Yeah.
Because emotions are just going to pour out of me, and it's going to be okay. But
you know what? You'll wake up one day and you'll be ready to go. So don't push yourself. Just wait for that day to come. So,
yeah, and
it'll come. It might be 2 years from now. It might be 2 months from now, but it'll come.
I keep getting close. I've gotten really close.
No, don't push yourself. You'll just wake up one day. I'm telling you, you'll wake up one day and you'll be like, okay, this is the day I'm going. So just wait for that day to come.
Yeah, and I think that'll help me a lot too. Ironically, I had a dream about her last night, so we were out shopping together, which she loves shopping and loves makeup and all that, which I don't. So
she was so good with her makeup too. Oh my God.
Always. I would sit in her, bathroom and watch her put her makeup on. I'm like, I don't have time. She used to get up, I kid you not, at 4:30 in the morning because she works so early at Social Security. She had to get up extra early because her makeup had to be perfect. And I said, not me. I don't even want to wear any makeup.
I think about working from home, and working from home, Kenya would still have, I bet you she would still have perfect makeup on and perfect hair.
I wouldn't doubt it because she always was so put together. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But, this was great. I really appreciate you talking about this. There's so much more we could talk about. That's why I'm excited to do this every Wednesday, getting this first one under my belt, showing people that let's just talk. Laura,
I will say one more thing about grief, and this is going to sound strange. It doesn't have to be sad. Grieving somebody doesn't have to be sad. And I think that's the thing, the mistake we make. We think it has to be sad, so we don't want to do it. And part of grieving somebody is remembering the happy times and laughing through those times. And for me, how I get through it, one of the reasons I took up ballroom dancing is because I knew my brothers would love to watch me dance. And I'm like, they're there with me. And so part of grieving is just finding the joy in the memories of them and then living that joy, doing what they would love for you to do. And that'll come to you with Kenya. One day you'll be like, oh, Kenya would love it if I did this. Or you'll get in a car and drive to Pittsburgh to see the Steelers or something crazy.
She's already excited. I said Facebook that I wanted the Steelers to win this year. So that was
unless they play the Packers.
I don't know, but yeah, I definitely feel her all the time. And
another thing is like my mom, we did this John Edward thing again with at Roland's, and we'd gone and it was all on Zoom, and my mom had this amazing reading. And she was like, I don't understand why I'm getting it now, and I never did. I thoroughly believe when you're too far into grief, when you're too sad and you're too much in despair, you're not going to feel it. You need to let that time go, and you need to be open to it. So.
Yeah, that's, I mean, I've learned so much from you, and even some stuff I didn't know about you. So, thank you so much for sharing. I definitely appreciate you taking this Wednesday. I know we had to do a little back and forth, but I'm going to try to keep these moving forward. For those of you still watching, and when you're going to watch next Wednesday, drum roll, Melissa, because you got on here before Kevin got on here, so that's a big deal. But Kevin, my fiance, will be joining me next Wednesday to talk about financial wellness. Oh, cool. And you guys know he loves money and houses and all that stuff. So I'm looking forward to having him on here. He may sit next to me, but knowing him, he'll be downstairs in his office separate too, because he loves, working with people and helping people. So next Wednesday, that's what the topic is going to be about. Before we log off, I know some people are sending some messages, really not any questions, but Melissa, I know you're open if anybody has some questions at the end. If they reach out to me, I'm going to go ahead and put the book link in here too. So if anyone wants to read Biden's book.
I'm good.
Absolutely. And, the John Edwards thing, I'll go ahead and put some information about that. I'll get that from you and send it out to everybody.
Well, he's doing Zoom ones now, and they're incredible because
nice.
Like what he does is you ask him questions, and then he'll read them. And then if he gets a reading, like we were at Roland's. Roland got a reading, I got a reading, and my mom got a reading, all from one question. So yeah.
Awesome. But yeah, I'll put all that stuff in the chat in the actual next event, or I don't know how I'm going to set all this up, just, you know, kind of playing by ear. But thanks everybody for watching. Those of you who are going to watch this at the end, appreciate you guys listening through. Look forward to next week and every Wednesday as this builds. I appreciate you guys so much. This has been awesome. I feel so great in my heart. And we will talk soon. Thank you so much, Melissa.
All right. Bye-bye.